Minister Harry Narayan Nabat resigns from the National Assembly ahead of his anticipated diplomatic posting to Brazil.
President Barry Jagdeo departs for Washington to meet with officials of the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the U.S. Agency for International Development.
And UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says disabled people have a fundamental role to play in the global development processes as the world observes International Day for Persons Living with Disabilities.
Judiciary, health tips, and of course the latest sporting action in the Diamond, Mineral Water, and NCN Sport News, and more after these. Good evening, I'm Delicia Fletcher.
And I'm Paul Moore.
With this edition of the 6 o'clock news for today, Wednesday, December 3, 2008. Here's what's happening, Paul.
Thanks, Delicia. President Barry Jagdeo has departed for Washington to meet with officials of the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the U.S. Agency for International Development. Mr. Jagdeo intends to discuss several developmental projects which are being undertaken through joint initiatives with the entities. This includes the Guyana Threshold Country Plan Implementation Project, which is aimed at improving the national economy. Wiretapping and plea bargaining, among other security arrangements, have now become law as President Barry Jagdeo yesterday gave his assent to several pieces of legislation passed in the House recently. The controversial Interception of Telecommunications Bill 2008 was passed in October without support from the opposition. Edward Lane reports.
Presented to yesterday are the Interception of Telecommunication Bill 2008, the Criminal Law Procedure Amendment Bill 2008, and the Criminal Procedure, that's Plea Bargain and Plea Agreement Bill 2008. These were tabled in the National Assembly in August before the House went into recess and were passed in October. The wiretapping law was passed without opposition parties' support, while the others received the opposition support. Home Affairs Minister Clement Rohi, during a close-up program, said the enactment of these new security laws is seen as vital to reducing this upsurge in criminal activities in Guyana over the recent years.
These measures were proposed mainly as crime-fighting measures, and the fact that they emanated from persons who were involved in fighting crime directly, that is from police and Army officials, is testimony to the fact that they were seen as tools to be used in this modern day fight against crime.
Mr. Rohi adds that the laws will bring Guyana's security legislation in line with what obtains in other jurisdictions and was called for by the security forces to aid the crime fight. These were also recommendations that came out of a special heads of government conference on crime and security in Trinidad and Tobago last April. Mr. Rohi noted that the wiretapping bill allows for the seizure of communications equipment, the acquisition and disclosure of data relating to communications, and the acquisition of means by which protected communications may be accessed.
First of all, you have to get the approval of the court, of the judge. And the legislation clearly spells out the steps that has to be taken in order for you to acquire the permission of the judge.
Additionally, intercepted communication obtained on a warrant will also be made admissible in any criminal proceedings. Meanwhile, the plea bargaining will formalize plea agreements in law and will allow for the Director of Public Prosecution to arrange plea agreements for the speedy disposal of cases, while the Criminal Law Procedure Amendment Bill 2008 will give magistrates the power to commit an accused to trial in the High Court without a preliminary inquiry based on initial presentation by both the defense and the prosecution. Edward Lane, the 6 o'clock news.
The third Rahamans Roundabout Christmas tree light-up ceremony was held yesterday to usher in the Christmas season. President Barry Jagdeo, in acknowledging the message of Christmas, said Guyanese are fortunate to live in a country where people of all religions celebrate Christmas. The head of state added that the world's financial crisis is having dire effects on especially poor societies, urging persons not to rely on agencies and government to eliminate the scourges. He also used the opportunity to talk about the importance of children and women. President Jagdeo added that in the season of hope and goodwill, these groups should not be forgotten. Recommendations from the Ethnic Relations Commission's Religious Broadcasters Workshop will soon be presented to the National Assembly. ERC Chairman Bishop Juan Edgel says responsible religious broadcast in Guyana is important. More in this report.
Several recommendations have been made by representatives from various religious fraternities following a religious broadcasters workshop on Tuesday. These include the promotion and practice of religious tolerance for different views and interpretations, development of positive attitudes towards interreligious dialogue, and being more sensitive about language used on the airwaves. ERC Chairman Bishop Juan Edgell believes that broadcasters should seek to foster harmony among themselves rather than trying to ridicule other religions. Despite varying theologies, he says development of core values and principles can help to infiltrate the mindset of citizens and build a better Guyana. Bishop Edgell believes that the religious bodies must influence policy and change in Guyana and should exemplify these positive traits through their broadcasts. He notes that the failure to do this has resulted in many persons being led astray. As such, the ERC chairman has stressed the need to teach the concepts of religion correctly to ensure that there is respect and dignity among the persons from various religious backgrounds. Recommendations are expected to be analyzed and drafted into a report which will be presented to the National Assembly. The workshop, which is the first of its kind in Guyana, was held under the theme Encourage and Create Respect, Religious, Cultural and Other Forms of Diversity in Plural Society. Reporting for the 6 o'clock news, I'm Sharda Lal.
Thanks, Sharda. The Guyana Police Force has reported a 48% reduction in the number of fatal accidents resulting in deaths this year. A total of 89 fatal accidents occurred in which 101 lives were lost, while for the same period in 2007, a total of 158 fatal accidents occurred, resulting in the deaths of 195 persons. There was a drastic reduction in the number of children who lost their lives on the roads, where 4 deaths were recorded as compared to 28 for the corresponding period last year. The Guyana Police Force also reported 5,042 cases against defaulting motorists in November during its zero-tolerance campaign, Operation Safeway. Speeding on the roadways contributed a majority of the 2,841 cases, while overloaded minibuses numbered 326, followed by 126 breaches of road service license. Other offenses included stopping within 30 feet of a corner, which recorded 96 cases, breach of insurance, 88 cases, failure to wear seatbelts, 54, and failure to wear safety helmets, 39 cases. CARICOM has endorsed a plan of action that allows for the establishment of a Caribbean Public Health Authority in Trinidad. Assistant Secretary General Edward Green says all regional health institutions will now be combined to ensure more efficiency in the sector. Details from Anika Jones.
Ministers of Health in the Caribbean have agreed on a plan for the transition of regional health institutions into the Caribbean Public Health Agency by 2010. CARICOM Assistant Secretary General Dr. Edward Green says this agency will ensure the proper management of the region's health sector.
Right now there is an overlap. There is a overlap both in functions as well as in structure. There is a sort of a duplication of budget, and therefore the combination of them into one authority would allow for more effective dealing with health issues.
Green says Trinidad and Tobago has offered to host the main campus of the Caribbean Public Health Authority. He disclosed that funding is still being discussed.
They would have to assess what the costs of the options are, and then how this will be financed.
Health ministers mandated the program management group to finalize the structure and costing by year end. Recommendations will be approved by the Community's Council of Human and Social Development in time for presentation to the intersessional meeting of the CARICOM heads in March. Onika Jones, the 6 o'clock news.